Beneath the cold sweep of distant stars, the galaxy slept in silence, a peace not born of harmony but of submission. The Zandari Dominion, a civilization older than memory, ruled from their throne world of Arcanus with calculated brutality. Planet after planet had bent the knee, and those that had no longer existed in maps or memory. Their armada, dark and elegant, prowled through space like celestial predators, enforcing an empire where resistance was not feared. It was unthinkable. The High Council chamber was a circle of order, forged in steel and soaked in centuries of conquest. 72 chairs formed a perfect ring, each occupied by a representative whose name carried the weight of bloodlines, legacies, and planetary subjugations. At the center rose the elevated dais. With a ruling triumvirate, the Dominion sat in silent deliberation, eyes fixed on holographic projections of star systems, data streams, and the occasional flicker of planetary unrest. Commander Viral leaned forward, fingers steepled beneath his chin. His face, chiseled from time and discipline, held no room for sentiment. "Another rebellion, this time on Harkin's moons," he said, voice a low vibration of restrained disdain. "Crushed in under 4 hours. Efficient. They're becoming more frequent," murmured strategist Jorek. His tone lacked concern, more an observation than a warning. Desperation tends to quicken as hope dies. Hope. It was an ancient word in the Dominion, relegated to mythology and the tongues of prisoners. The Council rarely spoke of it. "They whisper of Earth again," said a third voice, smooth and distant. The robed figure known only as the seer sat still, face obscure beneath the folds of crimson fabric. In their last moments, they call upon Terrans, as if they were gods returning from exile. Viral scoffed, the sound harsh in the otherwise reverent room. "Earth is ash. The Terrans fell before they could even reach our borders. Their legacy is a ghost, spoken by fools." The seer turned slightly, the hood shifting just enough to reveal the edge of a scar that cut down from brow to cheek. Yet the ghost stirs. We intercepted a transmission. It was fragmented, but unmistakably Terran in origin. Silence lanced through the chamber like a blade. No one interrupted the seer when they spoke in that tone. The hollow display flickered, crackled, and then resolved into a short, distorted message. "We are the edge of vengeance. We are the silence before thunder. We are Terran." The chamber rippled with subtle shifts, breath held too long, fingers curling against chair arms, the unspoken acknowledgement of a name not heard aloud in over a century. Strategist Jorek waved a dismissive hand. A fabrication. Someone from the outer fringes playing a ghost to stir rebellion. "Perhaps," said the seer, "but the data signature is pure. An old warship transponder. TSF designation. There was only one such designation that could exist. Terran Stellar Fleet." Viral stood, his expression unreadable. "A myth signature, and you'd have us entertain it." "I would have you fear it," the seer replied. Light years away, in the charred orbit of Syndrix 9, something moved among the ruins. A Terran dreadnought, its hull blackened by time and battle, ghosted through the debris field. It bore no official markings, only a jagged symbol scrawled near the bow, ancient Terran runes translating to Leviathan. Inside, silence reigned, not from emptiness, but from discipline. Captain Alira Voss stood on the command bridge, her reflection fractured in the obsidian-black console beneath her. Blood streaked her face, dry in thin rivulets across her cheek and neck. Her armor was dented, scorched, but intact. Around her, the crew moved with precision, not one flinching at the ruin on their captain's skin. "Status," she said, voice sharp but controlled. "Zandari scout vessel neutralized. No survivors." "Message beacon deployed," replied her lieutenant, a man with eyes like burnt copper and a spine too rigid for his age. "Transmission clean. We kept the old code. They'll know it's us." "They're already afraid," Alira said. She didn't smile. She never did. "We'll teach them to remember why." She turned and left the bridge, boots echoing down the warpath corridor that ran through the spine of the ship. As she walked, the ghosts of the past kept pace. Burnt photographs etched into metal walls. Names engraved into the bulkheads. The Terran way of remembering their dead was not silence. It was steel and scars. In the war room, she stood before a wide screen showing the sector surrounding Arcanis. All red, all marked as controlled territory. But one pulse blinked blue, the message beacon. They'd taken out a patrol fleet of 3 Xandari frigates and left the remains as a calling card. Elira had wanted to hit closer to the throne world, but logistics and fuel made such ambitions fatal. For now, you think they'll come looking for us? Asked her second, Kara Miles, stepping into the room with blood still crusted in her short hair. Elira didn't turn. No, they'll send something worse. They'll send silence. They'll pretend nothing happened. They've forgotten how dangerous that is. No, Elira said quietly. They've forgotten who we are. The Dominion Council reconvened the following cycle. This time, the seats were filled not just with stoic politicians, but with murmurs, fear disguised as strategy. We must respond. This is not mere resistance. It's declaration, said one admiral, his fist striking the console. If it is truly Terran, we cannot allow this news to spread, another insisted. The memory of Earth will spark fire. They will know, the seer said flatly. The galaxy watches more closely than you think. A collective pause. Then we must erase them again, Viral said. This time without mercy. Last time was without mercy, the seer replied. And yet here they are. Jorek leaned forward. Then we adapt, track them, kill them in silence. No broadcasts, no trials, just a return to ash. Perhaps. The seer's voice had softened. But this time, the Terrans do not return to die. A soft chime interrupted. An aide approached Viral with a datapad. His eyes scanned it and narrowed. A mining station on the rim was destroyed last night. Entire crew eviscerated. Defensive AI systems bypass. No survivors. Weapon signatures? Jorek asked. Viral handed the pad to the center console. Holographic schematics appeared. Railgun impact marks. Kinetic splinters. Old tech. Human tech. Not a word was spoken. It didn't need to be. The seer rose for the first time in decades. As the red folds of their robe flowed down the steps toward the chamber exit, a chill filled the air. They have returned, the seer said, voice low and certain. And the stars weep red. In a Leviathan's brig, a Xandari pilot sat shackled to the wall, blood dripping from his mouth, eyes locked on the figure before him. Elira knelt, one hand against the wall, the other wiping blood from her armor, without looking at him. You saw us, she said. He didn't respond. You saw what a Terran ship can do, what a Terran captain can be. Still silence. Elira leaned closer, voice as quiet as a knife being unsheathed. Tell your masters. Earth remembers. And we are not alone. She stood, turned, and gave the order. Jettison him. Let them find his corpse. Let them wonder. As the airlock door sealed, Elira stood before the stars. The Leviathan moved like a shadow through the galactic dark, its surface a jagged silhouette against a far-off shimmer of dying stars. It had been a week since the first strike. The Dominion hadn't responded, not in the open. But Elira Voss knew the silence was a lie. A storm was building, coiled and watching, and they were sailing straight into its eye. In the crew's mess, the hum of the ship faded behind the clink of metal trays and murmured conversations. Soldiers of Earth, or what remained. A single breath of stillness settled across the Dominion outpost on Velis Theta before the sky opened like a wound. No warning sirens, no defense grid activation. Just a sudden, searing streaks of kinetic fire raining down from orbit. Terran ordnance struck with pinpoint cruelty, piercing bunkers and shattering comm towers before the soldiers on the ground even understood they were under attack. In the ruins of the outpost command hub, smoke curled through shattered walls. Bodies lay crumpled in silence. Amid the debris, Captain Elira Voss stepped over twisted metal, her boots crunching against scorched tiles. The faceplate of her helmet retracted, revealing the hardened set of her features and the fresh blood marking the edge of her jaw. She looked ahead to where Lieutenant Kara Miles was crouched over the Dominion's Central Intelligence core, an obsidian pillar, pulsing faintly like a dying heartbeat. Kara looked up as Elira approached. It's still intact. not broadcasting, but the data might still be buried inside. Good, Alira replied. Get out. We need answers. Behind them, 2 Terra Marines kept watch at the door. They were young, barely into their 20s, but their eyes carried the same quiet fury that bound the entire crew of the Leviathan. Rage was no longer loud among Terrans. It had learned patience. Alira scanned the room again. The outpost had been built into the planet's rock face, designed to be impervious. That illusion had lasted 13 seconds. Kara extracted the data a core the size of a clenched fist. Encryption's thick, but not impenetrable. She'll be able to run it through the AI back on the ship. Do it. I want everything. Fleet deployments, supply lines, throne world trajectories. You think this place knew anything worth hiding? I think the fact that it was this well defended means it knew more than it was supposed to. They exited the ruined facility and rejoined the extraction team at the ridge above. The view below was bleak. Plumes of smoke twisting skyward from the blackened bones of the outpost, and in the distance, a glimmer of Dominion troop, carriers retreating toward the horizon. Survivors. Alira had let them go. For now, Kara tilted her head. That silence we were waiting for? I think it's over. Alira nodded. Then we speak louder. Hours later, back aboard the Leviathan, the core was uploaded into the mainframe. Screens flickered as the ship's AI, Athena, began the slow process of cracking through Dominion encryption. Athena had once governed a Terran battleship fleet before everything burned. Now she existed only here, fragmented and unfinished, like the people she served. Alira stood in the command center, arms crossed, watching the data streams evolve into coherent maps and communications. Kara sat beside the console, her brow furrowed. Got something, Kara said. It's a fleet manifest. Movement logs. And look at this. Classified transits around Arcanis. They're repositioning warships. Anticipating us. No, Kara said, zooming in on a highlighted path. They're gathering for something else. These aren't defensive movements. It's an invasion route. Alira leaned closer. Where? Daxion sector. Border colonies. Supposed to be neutral. They're not going after rebels, Alira said darkly. They're eliminating alliances before we can form them. The screen suddenly shifted. Another file had unlocked, an internal transmission thread. Alira read aloud. Operation Iron Veil. Immediate implementation upon confirmation of Terran resurgence. All high-risk systems to be cleansed. Kara blinked. Cleanse. Orbital bombardment. Civilian removal. Total erasure. So much for silence, Kara muttered. They're not denying us, Alira said. They're trying to erase us again before we rise. The bridge doors hissed open. Sergeant Talvin stepped in, his posture tense. We picked up a signal. Encrypted but crude, from a surface-level transmitter on Garros Prime. That's a backwater mining moon, Kara said. It was. Someone there is broadcasting in old Terran code. Alira's pulse quickened. Coordinates. Talvin handed over a datapad. Alira scanned it and passed it back. Plot a course. We go now. Kara hesitated. It could be a trap. Good. Let them try. 3 hours later, the Leviathan entered orbit over Garros Prime. From space, it was a desolate place. Cracked plains of volcanic rock and endless storms of red dust. The transmission came from within a collapsed settlement dome long abandoned. Alira, Kara, and 2 Marines descended to the surface in a drop skiff. As they stepped into the dead colony, the wind screamed around them. Metal structures groaned in the strain of time. Every shadow felt like a memory left behind. Inside the main dome, they found the source, a transmitter, cobbled together from broken parts and jury-rigged wires, pulsed with weak but defiant energy, and crouched beside it, holding a broken rifle, was a child. She couldn't have been older than 12. Her clothes were patched rags, her face smeared with dirt, but her eyes, those deep, defiant eyes, locked on Alira with the strength of someone who had lived through too much. Alira knelt. Where are your people? The girl didn't answer. Instead, She pointed toward the dome's far corner. They followed her lead. Inside a half-buried chamber, nearly 24 survivors huddled, young and old, half-starved but alive. A few held makeshift weapons. Others wore Terran badges long faded from history. When Alira entered, they straightened, recognizing her not by name, but by the armor, the bearing, the fire. One of the elders stepped forward. We kept the code. We remembered. When we saw your strike on Velis Theta, we knew you were real. We're more than real, Alira said. We're not done. The elder's voice cracked. Others will come. If they know you're out there, others will rise. They already are, Alira said. We just lit the first spark. Outside, above the broken dome, the Leviathan circled like a predator, and across the stars, the Dominion began to stir in earnest, not with silence this time, but with steel. As Alira looked around the survivors, a flicker of something long buried stirred in her chest. Not hope, resolve. The Dominion's fleet arrived in orbit over Garros Prime like a curtain of fire, their ships cutting through the storm clouds with blades of silver and malice. Hundreds of vessels, battleships, carriers, interceptors, formed a tight wall of judgment. It was not a show of force. It was a sentence. In the command center of the Leviathan, Alira Voss stood at the central console, her eyes locked on the tactical display. The screen bloomed with red, enemy signatures tightening in formation. They hadn't come to negotiate. They'd come to annihilate. Kara Miles paced beside her, her jaw clenched. We can't hold this position. Not against that many. We're not holding, Alira said quietly. We're delivering something. Kara stopped. A message? A reckoning? Athena's voice chimed to the bridge, low and calm. Targeting solutions are incomplete. Enemy fleet maintains jamming fields. Orbital supremacy impossible, without a diversion. Alira turned to the forward viewport. Down below, the civilians of Garros were being loaded into evacuation shuttles. Terran volunteers, those who still had the fire, were preparing the last offensive lines at the base of the broken colony towers. No illusions of survival, just enough resistance to buy minutes. Malkin entered the bridge. Grime streaked across his face, his voice hoarse. We finished retrofitting the secondary launch tubes. The core's unstable. One hit and she'll go up, but until then... It'll buy us a knife, Alira said. Good. Kara looked at her. You're not thinking of staying in orbit. I am. Alira, this is what we are. A myth, remember? Ghosts don't run. They haunt. A beat of silence passed. Kara nodded. Then we bleed them. The Dominion fleet moved with brutal precision. From the Viral's Wrath, a flagship 10 kilometers long, Admiral Cale Jorek observed the deployment with clinical disinterest. His face was carved in stone, his voice a whisper rarely raised. They haven't fled, his second-in-command noted. The Leviathan remains in orbit. They won't leave, Jorek replied. They're fanatics, ruins made flesh. She's one ship. She's the idea of a world we fail to bury. And ideas are harder to kill than fleets. He turned to the communications officer. Begin the strike. Scorch the colony. Then take the ship apart. Plasma lances tore into the surface of Garros Prime, melting steel and earth. The first Terran defense lines fell under relentless bombardment. From her command post within the ruined dome, Kara coordinated countermeasures, deploying decoys, scrambling jamming pulses, calling artillery strikes that barely scratched the Dominion's armor. But the point was never destruction. It was distraction. From high orbit, the Leviathan descended into the thick of the firestorm. Alira sat in the captain's chair, her hands wrapped around the armrests like she was holding the bones of the past together. Alarms screamed across the decks. Hull shields faltered under focused strikes. Bring us within 10 kilometers of their command vessel, she ordered. Athena responded, her voice sharper now. Recommend aborting. This approach path results in 98% loss projection. I'm betting on the 2%. The ship thundered forward, passing through fire like a ghost unafraid of flame. Close-range torpedoes launched, cutting through a Dominion frigate and detonating against the side of battlecruiser. A cheer rippled through the lower decks, but it was short-lived. One of the Leviathan's rear stabilizers was sheared off. Fire raged in Section 14. Malkin's voice crackled through comms. Reactor spike in progress. We're going to lose internal containment. Good, Alira said. Open the launch tubes. What? Now. The Leviathan banked hard, turning toward the Viral's wrath. From the belly of the battleship, a single pod launched, small, fast, nearly invisible in the chaos. It pierced the Dominion formation like a blade of ice. No one tracked it. No one cared. Inside the pod was a delivery system, a payload of destabilized core energy laced with nanite disruptors. The most dangerous part? It didn't detonate on impact. It infected. Like a virus, it burrowed into the Viral's RAS systems, transmitting ghost signals, looping false readings, seizing control of their weapon grid. One by one, their primary cannons went dark, then, without warning, turned inward, firing on friendly ships, sowing confusion and panic. The Dominion formation stuttered. From the surface, Kara saw it unfold. They're breaking. They're fleets. Something's wrong with their command. Strike now. Alira's voice came through the comm. Push everything we've got. On Garros Prime, surviving artillery stations opened fire. The shuttles carrying civilians launched into the upper atmosphere under cover of confusion. The Leviathan, bleeding flame, pressed forward. On the Dominion bridge, Jork rose from his chair, fury crackling behind his stoic mask. Trace the intrusion. Disable all autonomous systems. Too late, a tech officer whispered. They're in. Then the Leviathan crashed through the outer perimeter of the Viral's wrath and collided at full speed, its core overloading in a blinding bloom of light. The explosion ripped through space like a birth scream, tearing through half a dozen ships in its wake. A piece of vengeance, carved into reality. Silence followed. Not peace, just silence. The kind that comes after thunder, where no one breathes because they're waiting to learn who's left. In the cockpit of an escape craft drifting to the edge of the battle zone, Kara Miles exhaled. She looked out through the cracked viewport at the wreckage of the Dominion fleet, the fading light of the detonation still rippling across the stars. She did it, someone whispered behind her. Kara didn't reply. She couldn't. Her voice was gone, caught somewhere in the conflagration that had taken Alira Voss with it. No one saw her board the escape pods. No signals had left the ship. She had gone down with the Leviathan, as she'd always intended. Kara pressed her hand to the viewport. She's not dead, she said at last. She's legend now. Across the network, messages began to spread. Pirate stations, rebel outposts, silent colonies that hadn't spoken in decades, all receiving the same signal. A recording, grainy, scarred by transmission noise. Alira's voice. You think we died when Earth burned. You were wrong. You thought we'd forget. You were wrong. You thought silence was surrender. But silence is just the breath before the scream. The message ended. And the galaxy, for the first time in generations, remembered what was to fear a Terran voice. The war wasn't over. It had just begun.